I feel like one of the most common questions that I have gotten recently has been, what is the ceiling of this team, right? What is the floor of this team? What's the most likely outcome? Every time I go on the radio or something like that for an interview. And I feel like this weekend kind of showed you the ceiling of this team, the most likely scenario. And we didn't see a worst case scenario like the floor. So I think all in all, great weekend. We're going to talk about it. This is the Barn Baseball Show. I'm Lindsay Crosby. He's Brad Law. Sonny DeShera is playing spring training baseball right now and just can't be here schedule-wise with us. He'll be back soon. But Brad, Auburn goes 2-1 against Vanderbilt. And Friday's game, I mean, we'll take an order, but Friday's game, as impressive a win as I think I have seen from a Butch Thompson team in a long time. They take this. It is 6-2. It doesn't even feel like it's that close. And just, dominance on the mound from the Auburn Tigers.
Yeah. It was a Vanderbilt team that was sort of front-loaded offensively. Its top three players in the lineup Friday. Now, they moved Jacob Humphrey up in the order Saturday, Sunday. So their top four, pretty formidable averages, formidable numbers. And Samuel Dutton pitched the game of the year so far from a starter, 7 innings. And then Carson Myers came in, and Vandy got 2 hits from the third inning on. That's a Friday. That's the way you open play. It's probably the most dominant effort from a starter, maybe since game 1 of the Missouri doubleheader 2 seasons ago in the last series of the regular season. I think Chase Alsop had a very strong outing that day. But if you want to go back a little further and talk about against a ranked team, maybe the last time Vanderbilt was at Plainsman Park and the Sunday game of that series in 22 when Joseph Gonzalez pitched a complete game. So it was really, conference play. We go into it, Lindsay, and we say, we're going to find out how sure this footing, this foundation of excitement and optimism, all right, how sturdy is this platform? And I think coming out of the weekend, that platform is sturdier and may have added a level to it. And it starts with what we saw out of Sam Dutton Friday night in that starting effort. It's one thing to do it against the Holy Crosses and Wright States and Ohio States and Old Dominions. It's another thing entirely to do it in SEC play against a tough, gritty Vanderbilt team.
And when you kind of go back and you look at it, I think your point of only 2 hits after, like in the back half of the game. And really, both the runs come on the homer, which I remember right was like a changeup that he hung a little bit and it got whacked. And so an optimist can say you were 1 pitch away from a shutout. Not how baseball works, obviously, the would have, could have, should have thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was to not only get that kind of start from Sam Dutton, but then Carson Myers to come in and just shut things down, and to only use 2 pitchers in the first game of the series when they had to throw 4 guys, kind of gives you that sets you up for the rest of the weekend. And it's hard to quantify, right? But I would argue based on, and we'll get to it, but based on how Sunday's 8th inning went with how many pitchers Vandy was cycling through trying to find somebody, you can probably draw some sort of line between Auburn's efficiency and Vandy's lack of efficiency on Friday night and their bullpen shuffling on Sunday. Don't know how directly correlated it is, but it's easy to kind of project out.
Some of that is personality. The coaches, like Tim Corbin, likes to do the matchup thing a lot, and he's got a really deep bullpen. He's got, Butch Thompson compared it to a peacock. They have everything from side righties to side lefties to 3-quarter to high slot. Like they have just about every kind of pitcher you can imagine, and they're loaded with talent. They can throw a lot at you. And so it makes sense that they would like to go lefty, lefty, righty, righty, and play the matchup game. It's not as much Butch Thompson and Everett Tieford's philosophy to do that. They want guys to go a couple innings if they can. Every now and then you'll see spot duty. A guy comes in a jam. We've seen John Armstrong or Parker Carlson kind of play that role a little bit, but some of that's personality, but some of it is also this is a really good hitting Auburn lineup. And so when they got into Saturday and Auburn continued to fight, they didn't give anything away Saturday when they went down. Like they went down 8-4 in the 5th inning. And Jason Caldwell and I on the radio kept mentioning, we've been here 2 hours. It's a 2-hour game in the top of the 5th, but it's only the top of the 5th. You have more outs left than what you've recorded to this point. So there's still a lot of fight. And with this team, the way they don't give anything away offensively, keep chipping away. And Butch said yesterday, it's like you may lose the battle Saturday, but they had to bring in their closer for 34 pitches for 2 2/3 innings to win the Saturday game because Auburn didn't give anything away Saturday.
Yeah.
So they kept fighting. They scratched a couple of extra runs across. They made it close. They brought the closer in. Now when you get to Sunday and they're trying to hang on, Auburn's already seen the closer. And it played directly into the result of the game and therefore directly into the result of the series and Auburn winning the series Sunday.
I mean, that's the story of this Auburn team. Like there's been times you look at Friday, they had that 5-run 3rd inning. But for the most part, I think Butch made this comment to me on Saturday when we talked about after the game, after the loss, that Auburn's just scoring in every inning, like in almost every inning. They're putting up runs throughout the game, to your point, ratcheting up the pressure if you are ahead and trying to hold a lead against Auburn. If you're behind, they're putting the pressure on your offense to keep up with them. And even Saturday's game, yes, it's a loss, but if you look at the box score, Auburn has more hits than Vandy does. This is something, what was it? Auburn had, I think they struck out 10 guys. They only struck out 7 times.
Mm-hmm.
Something where in a lot of respects, not in runs, but in a lot of other respects, Auburn outplayed Vandy for a good portion of that game, especially late, to your point. They kept adding on runs there late. And the errors, some of the extra base hits maybe necessarily didn't help.
Yeah.
But they were in this. And if you play that game 50 times, it feels like it's probably 26-24, 27-23 maybe.
Yeah.
And I don't think last year's team does that.
Right.
I think last year's team, that's probably an 11-2 loss in 2024. But in 2025, they were not only in it, they were coming back. And it reminds me of, I think it was Ole Miss's coach in basketball, who's like, we just ran out of time. You felt like if that Auburn game on Saturday kept going for a couple more innings, Auburn probably could have gotten some more runs across the board and made it back into, gotten the lead again. And this Auburn team is relentless and they kind of grind. Can we talk about the struggles though on the mound with that long inning? Because it feels like Cam Tilley, John Armstrong are your guys who really kind of struggle there. And I think if John Armstrong's that guy we've thought of him now for a few years as he's the stopper who can come in and shut down a game. And it didn't happen in this instance. And I've had some people reach out to me and say, should we be worried about that? Because you had a late issue a couple weeks ago in a loss, and then you had this big blow up inning against Vandy. I don't think there's reason to panic about that because baseball happens sometimes. Am I off base there?
No, I don't think you're off base at all. I think if it happens a lot, then he won't get as many opportunities because there are other guys who are available in the bullpen. So it's like a big picture. Should you be concerned? No, I don't think so because I think the bullpen's deeper than it's been in previous years. From John's personal perspective, I don't know. Let's see. I know that there aren't a lot of guys who are grittier and tougher than he is. So I know next time he gets an opportunity, like he can't wait to go pitch again. He can't wait to get out there and contribute. So no, I still think we're probably a little early for being overly concerned. about that. We see how quickly it can turn, too. Look at what Hayden Murphy and Dylan Watts did in the Saturday game. It's not going to get talked about much because of what Carson Myers did Friday and what Andreas Alvarez did Sunday and what Ryan Hetzler did Sunday. There's some guys in the wins that pitched out of their mind out of the bullpen. Hayden Murphy and Dylan Watts kept that game within striking distance. It kept Auburn close. They kept Vanderbilt off the scoreboard again after that 5-run fifth inning. And if not for them coming in and stabilizing things, you don't get to a spot where Vandy has to go to their closer in the Saturday game because you got it down to a 2-run game. So, and those are guys that have struggled a little bit in the non-conference, and they come in when those lights are brighter and they just shut it down. So I say all that to say, to go back to John, let's watch him next time. Let's see what he does next time and next couple of times on the mound.
Yeah, I mean, that's, he had that issue against Sanford. He had the issue against Vanderbilt. But in the meantime, 2 2/3 against Old Dominion, 1 hit, no runs. I don't think he's walked anybody this year. I don't think John Armstrong issued a single walk all year in like 5 2/3 innings. But to your point there on that Saturday, I've got it here. Hayden Murphy, Jackson Sanders, Dylan Watts, the 3 of those guys together, 4 innings, no hits, 1 base runner. And it was a walk from Hayden Murphy. And if I remember right, he got pretty squeezed on a call. It's been a couple of days. If I'm remembering
all around
right,
the plate.
Yeah. And, they strike out 4, to your point. Last 4 innings, 11 batters, which feels like that's not necessarily right. Oh, I'm sorry. 12 batters. There it is. So Auburn faces them. I was confused. The at-bat, the walk threw me off on the at-bat. 12 batters faced. Vandy gets the minimum up in 4 innings. And to your point, that's what keeps Auburn in there.
How many hits did Vanderbilt have in the final 4 innings of all 3 games?
So Saturday, they have none. On Friday, they have, I believe it was none. I'm checking the play-by-play.
Okay.
I know the last 2 innings they had none.
Right.
But in the 6th, they did have a single in the 6th on Friday. So
in the last 4 innings Friday, they had 1.
In the last 4 innings on Saturday, they had none.
Okay.
And in the last 4 innings, it's not the game. I should have had this.
No, you're fine. I didn't tell you I was going to ask for this.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It looks like in the last couple innings, 1.
We're in 1. We're at 2 right now.
We're at 2 innings in the entire series in the last 4 innings of each game. 12 innings.
In 12 total innings, the last 4 innings of all 3 games combined, 2 hits.
Yep.
That's how you come from behind. That's how you put yourself in position to be competitive. It's how you win series. If you can shorten the other team's offensive output to 5 innings and you get 9, that's it. You're going to win series that way. So huge kudos to the bullpen for their work.
Also, just doing the math real quick, 14 strikeouts.
That's great. Yeah, that's better than a strikeout an inning and only 2 total hits in the last 4 innings of all 3 games combined. Terrific. I mean, that's MVP type stuff.
And to the note on Saturday, I don't want to move off of Saturday yet. I want to have a deeper conversation. But on the note there of them being able to use some of these guys, right, to get your depth out of some of these different arms, that means Ryan Hetzler is completely fresh on Sunday. Andreas Alvarez, completely fresh. And we're going to get to Sunday. I do want to have a conversation about Cade Fisher, though. Friend of the show, Cade Fisher. Another shorter start, 2 1/3 innings, 2 hits, 3 runs, 2 walks to 4 strikeouts. He was dynamic in the first. I mean, he struck out the side. I think he had like 5 or 6 whiffs. I was sitting next to the analytics team as he was doing that. And then from that point on, it just seemed to be a little bit, the stuff wasn't quite the same.
Yeah.
And after the game, Butch wasn't 100% willing to say that Cade Fisher was in fact going to stay in the rotation next weekend on the Auburn goes to Kentucky. I understand a bunch of basketball fans are heading to Kentucky to support the baseball team. I love that. Love that for you because you're going to be there. Is there a possibility that Cade Fisher maybe moves into some sort of other role and we see Andreas Alvarez or somebody else make their starting debut on the weekend, a Cam Tilley and Alvarez, something else, and maybe Fisher enters that Carson Skipper kind of role for Auburn?
Sure, it is possible. I was really interested in who Auburn was going to start this week, and the Alabama State starter is Alex Petrovic, so I'm excited to see what he does in another start in back-to-back, a second straight midweek start. But I wondered if he might, move to that role. Maybe you need to see him start a couple more times before you do that. Alvarez has started games. Fisher, if he were to do that, there would be precedent for it. You remember Tommy Vale in 22 started the season as a starter, kind of dealt with the same issue. At the end of that season was a pretty important piece out of the bullpen. Pitched some key innings for Auburn in the month of May and into June out of the bullpen in 22. So, it is kind of a repeat pattern with Cade. His stuff is electric in the first inning, and it was that way against Oregon State. He was good in the first inning against Old Dominion. I mean, he's like not touchable in the first inning. But then after that, and when you get to the bottom of the order, and when you get to the second time around, it does not appear to be the same. And so they have all kind of kinesiology reports. They have all sort of strength and endurance reports. They have more data than they have ever had. And there's nobody that you trust more than Butch and Everett Tiford and Scott Foxhall with that group. But I think if you're coming out of the weekend, that's the one, I think, issue where you go, if you're going to tinker, if something's going to have to be tweaked, it is probably something with Cade or that spot on Saturday.
Yeah. I mean, it's when he's getting, when he gets to that second up, right, he has to sit down and come back. And that's a question to your point of, is that a physical endurance thing, a strength thing? Is that a mentality thing? What is driving that? But I think you had that's a conversation to have this week. I don't know. Obviously we won't know starters until Thursday, but this very much is you can pinpoint that and say, you've now been in a couple Saturday games where you've had to do a little extra to come back. And it hasn't always worked like this Saturday because you were in a bit of a hole early. Now Auburn, Auburn had plenty of opportunities to score runs on Saturday, and they had that big what was it that I'm trying to remember here? The big a couple big hits that just never seemed to really fall on Saturday. But moving to Sunday, though, that's where you got fantastic performances from Andreas Alvarez, 4 innings of relief, 1 hit, no walks, 2 strikeouts. Ryan Hetzler came in for the save. It was only his first save of the year. It feels like he's had a couple 9th innings, but it's always been a 4-run lead or something like that. And I believe Alvarez actually got named the SEC Freshman of the Week. Did I say that correctly?
Yeah. Well, he threw 6 scoreless innings last week. He threw 2 against UT Martin.
And then came back on Sunday.
In Madison, and then the 4 against Vandy. So, he earned that, I think.
Yeah, that's it's kind of hard to argue with that. I see a world where you have him available for that Saturday start. It could be him. It could be Tilley. It could be Cade. And maybe it's an opener type situation. To your point, I think the Tommy Vale comparison is a good one as to a potential roadmap there. But ultimately, go ahead.
Yeah, like I don't know that you're going to get 7 from Dutton every Friday night and leave your bullpen in that full spot. I know you need more than 5 2/3 from your other 2 starters. Like you just as good and as deep as the bullpen is, imagine how much better it can be if it's only got to pitch, 8 innings over the course of 2 days. as opposed to 12 or 13. So you are going to have to get more out of that. And so we'll see. We'll see this week. Kentucky can hit the ball. Kentucky is a really good offensive team. So it's a totally different dynamic when you go up there to Lexington.
Yeah. And, thankfully Auburn had some games this weekend where they were able to get some big hits. Sunday, the Cade grand slam in the 8th inning to take it from a deficit to a lead, the ultimate winning runs there. That was a game, and I don't know how it felt to you in the booth. That was a game to me where it felt like Auburn kept having opportunities and just couldn't really seem to cash any of them in until there. Like they had a run in the 3rd, 2 runs in the 5th, but it just felt like they were on the cusp and could never really make it happen until there. Almost kind of the flip side of Saturday. Like Saturday, they had more hits and lost. Vandy had more hits and lost on Sunday, but they also had the errors that Auburn had on Saturday. Just interesting.
Yeah. And yet both games where Auburn trailed in later innings, this feels so different than like a year ago, even, or a couple of, going back to 21. Well, 21 was different too. They had too many 1-run losses in 21. They just needed a closer. They were fine. They just needed a closer. Anyway, last year, it kind of felt like when teams jumped on Auburn early, they didn't quite have the offensive firepower to battle back over the course of the game. Nor did they feel like they had the bullpen firepower to hold a team if they did get back in it or retake the lead. Both Saturday and Sunday, Lindsay, to me felt the same in that, all right, keep chipping away. Yeah. You can get to them eventually. Eventually, this thing is this tree is gonna fall if you'll just hang in there, because you have guys that fight for everything in their at bats. They don't go lunging, swinging, and missing and try to do too much. They're very happy to take a walk. They're very happy to take a single as opposed to try to pull it and hit a home run. And so
going the opposite way.
Yeah, very happy. I mean, that's what won on the game Friday. It's what won the game Friday was opposite field singles with 2 strikes. And then you get Cade up there who, we talked before we recorded here, the freshmen and the newcomers were the top hitters of the weekend. Like that trio of Lucas Steele plus the freshman 3, Terrell, Rembert, and Freilich, combined to hit 425 for the weekend. Phenomenal. Absolutely dynamic from the newcomers. And there's Cade, who doesn't have a hit on the weekend. He's 0 for 10 on the weekend.
But he
He kept fighting. He kept fighting. He didn't stay in. He didn't try to do too much. He didn't press. He just stayed true to the at-bats. And you can sound real romantic and flowery about this if you want to. Like, you can go however level you want to, but the coaches say it all the time. The game will reward you if you approach it the right way. And that's what happened in Cade's situation. He took the data from his at-bats against Green the day before, used that information in his at-bat Sunday, and had the biggest blast of the year so far for Auburn baseball. And he was 0 for 10 before that. So, like I'll take that and make it into a, because you have kids, you take anything, turn it into a life lesson. It's true for kids. It's true for grownups. It's true for whatever walk of life, whatever business you're in. You may fail 10 times. Do you have an 11th shot at it? Don't give up. Keep at it. The game
Your
will
process is
you.
sound.
Yeah. Stay with it. Stay with it. And head coach was emotional after the game. Cade was emotional after the game. How could you not be? Just a really wonderful, wonderful day Sunday.
Yeah. And big picture on the weekend, if you had told me you would go into Vanderbilt with no Ike Irish and you said, hey, Cooper McMurray's going to finish the weekend 1 for 10. Derek Fabian's going to finish 1 for 12.
Wow.
And you're going to win 2 out of 3. I wouldn't have believed you. Yeah. It felt so improbable, but in fact, they absolutely do. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe Vanderbilt stole 2 bases all weekend. We talked about that last week as a thing you had to watch for.
Yeah.
One.
They stole 1.
One. I'm sorry. 1. That's right.
They only tried 1. They only tried 1. which
on Friday.
is a terrific. I mean, again, that's reputation of Chase Fralick, reputation of the Auburn pitchers with quick delivery times and good pickoff moves and things of that nature. I mean, that was part of the reasoning for getting Andreas Alvarez on the weekend rotation, because you get these fast teams and he's got a quick pickoff move. And we saw that, I think, with Vanderbilt and a base runner, the only base runner he allowed in the game yesterday, kept him close. And so again, Auburn's doing some
lefty Carson Myers on Friday.
Auburn's doing some little things right that you have to do to win series. And so, yeah, that was, if there's ever, like, you talk about those return, and there are going to be some series where Coop and Derek are lights out, and they are the reason that Auburn wins series. This weekend, look at the top of the batting stats: 425 for Steele and the three freshmen. Look at Dutton's performance. Look at Alvarez. Look at Hetzler. This isn't last year's team. It's not in any capacity. And if you doubt that, the data backs it up. So whatever opinions that we had based on maybe last year's team, we can wrap those up in the garbage sack and throw them out, because this ain't that.
This is a whole different squad, and they are the ceiling is, I think, much higher. And I'd argue the floor is significantly higher, because they've shown they can hang with anybody. Auburn's not been blown out of any game this year.
No.
All of their losses have been close losses, and you can easily see how a couple bouncing balls one way or the other, a little bit of things changing, and they could, that would be a win. And as much as it's important to beat the teams you're supposed to beat, I think it's almost just as important in baseball to have a chance to win every game. And that's what this Auburn team does. If we had to pick MVPs from the weekend, it's not easy, right? I'm tempted to say a pitching MVP and a position player MVP, just to try to make it a little bit easier. I'm gonna kind of toot my own horn here and say my key to the weekend was Chase Fralick.
Yeah.
He had to have a big weekend. He went 4 for 11. He scored 4 runs, had 2 RBI. But to your point, what you said earlier, the defense, right? Back behind the plate, not allowed. I want to say, I think he got charged with 1 error on the entire weekend, which will happen sometimes. But he handled the conference play with aplomb. Yeah, caught every game.
All those really great pitching performances, Chase behind the plate for him. They're working in tandem. They're calling the games together. So, that's a really good pick. I think I'm going to go Samuel Dutton.
Yeah.
Because he started the whole thing. 7 innings, really set a tone. Got stronger as the game went on. Finished the 7th, like when you pass the baton, close the inning well. And I thought really set the tone for that weekend. I mean, it's hard not to pick Cade because he had the grand slam. It's hard not to pick an Andreas Alvarez or a Ryan Hetzler or
Bub Terrell. Let him in hits.
Or a Bub Terrell. Yeah. Bub the way he played left field looked like he'd been playing out there for 4 years.
Yep.
Played great defense in left field.
There was a ball off the wall. He played it perfectly.
Yeah.
And some of Andy's upperclassmen couldn't do that.
Yep, that's right. Yeah, he judged it perfectly so that he could catch it off a bounce with a bare hand and get it back on the infield. I mean, you can't play it any better than that. So, it's hard not to pick a bunch of these guys, but if we just have to pick one with great love for all of them, I guess it'll be Dutton. You get that. Let me tell you, you get a 6 or 7 inning start out of your Friday guy and give up 2 runs, you're going to win a lot of games.
You're in a good position. Yeah. You're ahead of the 8 ball all weekend when it comes to bullpen usage and pitching usage and all of that. So great weekend for Auburn. Back in action on Tuesday tonight. This is the last home game for a couple days, right? So, it's Alabama State
on the road after this.
Yep. Alabama State, 6 p.m. Then, like we said, you head to Kentucky. All those basketball fans coming to join us. Really love that. South Alabama at Georgia, back home on Tuesday, April 1st versus UAB.
Depends, depending on what happens in the basketball game tonight in Dayton between Alabama State and St. Francis, tonight's baseball game might be the first of 2 meetings with Alabama State this week for Auburn athletics.
It's just,
Could play them again Thursday in basketball.
There you go. I don't know. I kind of feel like that might be a little bit of a worst case scenario because they're going to want to take it to the in-state school who's the number 1 overall seed. I don't know if it really matters, but at the same time, you're kind of like,
they can want to do. Lindsay, there's plenty I want that I can't do anything about to make happen. Sure.
Zach and I were talking about the worst case scenario in the draw, and we're like, I guess if you have to play them in the first round, that's not ideal because of the extra, motivation for them.
Yes, between the two, that would be the worst case scenario. St. Francis is a game under 500, and their tallest player is 6'8". So, yeah, you'd rather. Anyway, we'll save that talk for a different show. This baseball team, look, come out tonight and watch them. It's the last home game in the month of March, as Lindsay mentioned, and again, I think it's human nature to say, and because Butch Thompson even referenced some of the similarities in the overall record before conference play to last year. And not, again, last year they had moments where they won their last 2 series of the year last year.
This made it 7 straight.
Yeah. So it's not like last year was the Hindenburg, but relative to it, I understand sort of the human nature. All right, well, this is a great start. Let's see how they do in conference play. Well, they won these 2 games without any fluke whatsoever. They won the games and won them outright by doing a lot of things that the game will reward. So your optimism, your hope, your enthusiasm about this team is merited, and we look forward to big, involved, loud, active crowds at Plainsman Park, and tonight's the last chance you have to see them at home in the month of March. So we hope we'll see you there.
Yep. Again, game time, 6 p.m. Brad Long, as always, on the call. This has been the Barn Baseball Show for Tuesday, March 18th. Back later this week, going to talk about Kentucky. Hoping to get a player interview. Depends on what Sonny's up to while he's out there at Angel Spring Training. For Sonny DeShera, for Brad Long, I'm Lindsey Crosby, and this has been the Barn Baseball Show.